And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey folks, today we're talking about Tiny Epic Kingdoms. This is a game of conquest, and it's a fantasy fight where you might be the dwarves or you might be the humans fighting against one another, and it's epic, but at the same time it's tiny. This was a smash hit on Kickstarter. I believe it garnered almost 9,000 backers, and so a lot of people were certainly interested in this. Lots of buzz beforehand. Well, now it's here. Let's see if the buzz is worth it. At the beginning of the game, you're going to pick which faction you want to use. So here's the lizard folk, and here's the halflings, and the undead, and the orcs, and the dwarves, and the goblins. And yeah, we're not really finding a lot of basically a variation here from your basic standard fantasy folks, but you have them. And basically the difference between these folks is the special abilities that they have on their science track. You have a little token that you'll get of your color. There's a book, although it does look like a bat or a shoe if you hold it sideways. And this will keep track of your technology. You're also going to get a territory area. So these territory areas are very different. You'll get a card and you can flip it on either side and use the different sides. Each side has different territories set up different ways. So maybe this is the side I want. So I put my starting guy on any spot on that board. And then there's two other boards up here. This one here is to keep track of actions, and this one here is to keep track of a tower building. And everyone has a tower here, and as they build their tower, it's going to go up farther on that. Now, players are trying to get points in this game, and they're going to get points through a few ways. One way is the tower. So if you manage to get this all the way up to the top of the tower, notice you'll get 10 victory points. Another way is to get your meeple dudes on the board. So the more of these you have on the board, the more points you're going to get, unless they're in these runes areas. Those don't give you points, but they're special because they give you a wild resource during the course of the game. There's also capital cities. Here's a capital city, and those are worth 2 points if you have someone in those. And then you'll also get some points for your level of magic. Not as much as the tower, but you will get some points, and the top one gives you special bonus points on there. Now the game revolves around this action board. One person is going to put one of these shields in an action, and everyone is going to take that action. Then the next player picks one, the next player, the next player, the next player, then they're cleared, and you keep doing that. Now, except in a 5-player game, then because there's 5 actions, then one person skips so that everyone gets to go first one time. When this action is taken, instead of taking this action, you can look at all your dudes on your board or on other people's boards, and each dude or meeple will give you a resource of the type that they are on. Now, on your card, you have 3 different tokens that you'll be keeping track of your resources with. You have basically magic, you have food, and then you have rock. And you keep track of those. And so if I have one meeple on, for example, the mountains, he'll give me 1 rock. If I have one in the forest, he'll give me 1 magic. If I have one out here in the plains, he'll give me 1 food. If I had 2 in plains, then I would get 2 food. So I can do that instead of taking the action. What are the actions? Well, one action is patrol. That simply lets you move a meeple from one region to an adjacent region. Another action is quest. That lets you take a guy who's on the outside of the board and move him to the outside of someone else's board, or from someone else's board to a third player's board. The next action is build. You pay a certain number of brick resources. So let's say my tower was here. On the second level, I need to pay 3 brick resources to go to the next one. Then there's research. Research lets me move my magic. I pay a certain number of magic points and move up. Now these magic points are pretty cool because they do all sorts of things. For example, here, if I get to level 3 for the elves, magic can be used as any resource. Or up here, magic is counted as 1 instead of 2 in a war against you. Well, what does that mean in a war? Well, we'll talk about wars in a second. And then finally, you can build more meeples. You have to put one where you already have a meeple, but then you have to pay 1 food for each meeple you have in play. So you'll see that rock is used to build the tower, food is used to bring more meeples on the board, and magic is used for increasing your magic. However, there can be a war. If you move into the same spot as someone else's meeple, that is not allowed, sirs. And so there will be a war. In a war, you're going to fight. You can use resources. Each magic counts as 2 in a fight, and each brick or rock counts as 1. Each player has their own custom die. That's pretty cool. And you're going to secretly hide however many resources you're going to use. Whoever uses the most is the winner. However, you do use them all. You spend them. So let's say I spent 9 and I had 5 brick and 4 magic. So I might say, I'll spend 2 of the magic, that's 4, and then I'll spend all 5 brick, that's 9. And that's how much I've attacked with. So you can also just, wave the retreat flag here and surrender. And that's how wars happen. You can make an alliance with somebody if you both offer the peace symbol on your dies. And by the way, the game comes with a special custom color die for each player. And then you don't fight that person. But if you do decide to fight them at any point, the alliance is broken. Now, the game is going to end when either someone gets their tower level all the way to the top, or someone gets their magic level to the top, or when someone gets all their meeples on the board. At that point, you count up points, and whoever has the most is the winner. Huzzah! There are lots of things to like about this game, but most of all are all the different groups of people. I really enjoyed how each one had different special abilities. One that made me laugh was the undead. Basically, when you lose in a war, you get some food. and eventually, when you beat other people in war, you get food. The halflings get points for each alliance that they've made with other people. The lizard folk get points for territories they control outside their home territory. So that's neat. And then I like how all these little territories were different. You have that land, when you move a guy in there, you lay him down, and you have to take an action to stand him up before you can move him out. But while he's laying down, when you get resources, you get one of your choice. Is that better, or is it better to get one of those castles that's worth more points at the end of the game? Are you going to attack people, and how many resources? The combat system here is almost completely lifted from a classic game called Dune, and I like this combat system. It's neat because you might be able to crush somebody, but if they use their full resources, and you have to spend all your resources, so you want to use as few as you can and still beat them. Very interesting. And the action selection card, that's a neat topic in and of itself, but it's very quick. I really don't have any complaints against this game except for it's tiny. And I know it seems odd because it's Tiny Epic Kingdoms, but I just don't see why it needed to be tiny. I would have been happy with Epic Kingdoms, or even medium Epic Kingdoms. I just think that this is, sometimes, especially moving the resources around in the card, the 3 resources on the track was a little fiddly. I think just getting the resources would have been better, although this does cap them at 9. And I do understand that I can carry around the full game in here, and it's not that grandiose of a game. We're talking a 30, 40-minute games, and the game escalates quickly. Once people start getting resources, it's easy for someone to finish their tower or to get their meeples out on the board. And that's fine, and I like that, and I like the fact that it's quick and short, and yet still has a punch. Mine, I don't know if everyone's comes with this, but it came with a mini expansion that adds some little random events that you can have if you want, and some even more different races. There's quite a few races that I have in this box, and that's great. For the price point, this is fantastic. I just think that I personally would have enjoyed it more had it been a bigger size, and the map's been bigger, and it felt a little bit more grandiose. But I don't really matter that much. So if you're looking for a game like this, think small world in a small box or something like that. This is going to meet a lot of people's, this is going to make a lot of people happy. It's going to be something that people get excited about because it's so small and yet packs a good punch of a game inside. The components are good. It has such a gigantic starting piece for such a small game. And I don't know, is it supposed to, you can stick one of your dudes underneath it? I don't know. Interesting. I don't know that the game is super deep. I don't think it can be, but I think it's very playable, and I think it's a solid offering. That's Tiny Epic Kingdoms.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool Stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.
Shut the door.